courthouse was unusually quiet that morning, as if even the walls were holding their breath. Every seat in the courtroom was filled, but no one dared speak above a whisper. The air buzzed with unspoken tension and hushed anticipation. Reporters from every major news outlet in the state had shown up, cameras poised just outside the courtroom doors. Everyone had heard of the case. Everyone knew what was at stake. But what everyone wanted and needed was one thing: for the little girl to speak. At just 8 years old, Lily Harper was the prosecution's last hope. She was the only known eyewitness to a brutal crime that had shaken the city to its core. But there was one problem. Lily hadn't spoken a single word since the night of the incident over 6 months ago. She was a small girl with pale skin and wide, storm gray eyes that seemed far too old for her age. Her long brown hair was braided neatly by her foster mother that morning, but nothing could hide the fear and weight she carried in her expression. As she sat in the witness stand, her feet barely touching the ground, her fingers clutched the padded arms of the chair like lifelines. Across the courtroom, the defendant, a tall man with hollow eyes and a faint smirk, leaned back confidently. In his seat, he wore an expensive suit, but no amount of tailoring could hide the shadows under his eyes or the arrogance in his stare. He had been denying everything, confident that Lily's silence would save him. Too many in the courtroom, it felt like a standoff. One little girl with a locked voice, and one man hiding behind the very silence that haunted her. Lily's attorney, Amanda Reynolds, stood beside her, heart racing. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, trying everything to help Lily find the courage to speak. Nothing had worked. Therapy, visual aids, soft encouragements. Lily remained mute. Amanda had nearly lost hope, until she discovered something that changed everything. Max was no ordinary dog. He was a retired K9, a 7-year-old German Shepherd trained in both detection and comfort. After retiring from the police force due to a leg injury, Max had been enrolled in a therapy companion program. That's where he met Lily. It started small. Lily would pet him or lie beside him during sessions. But then the foster mother began to notice something astonishing. Lily would whisper to Max, not loud enough to hear, but she was speaking, talking. She even smiled once. It was the breakthrough everyone had waited for. Amanda filed a special request to allow Max into the courtroom during Lily's testimony. It was highly unusual and not everyone approved. Some said it was manipulation, others claimed it was a distraction. But the judge, a sharp yet fair man named Judge Calvin Meyer, overruled the objections. He had seen enough trials to know that sometimes justice required compassion. So when the heavy wooden doors at the back of the courtroom opened that morning, and Max walked in alongside Lily's foster mother, every head turned. Max walked proudly, his gait calm and purposeful, wearing a vest that read, "Service Dog, Do Not Distract." Lily's eyes lit up the moment she saw him, a flicker of life, of connection. She looked away from the crowd and toward the only creature she truly trusted. For the first time since sitting on the witness stand, her body relaxed just slightly. Max was brought up to the witness stand and gently laid down at Lily's feet, resting his chin over his paws. He didn't look around the courtroom. He didn't bark or twitch. He simply laid there, his brown eyes on Lily, his presence steady. Judge Meyer adjusted his glasses. "Miss Harper, can you tell us what happened that night?" he asked gently. Lily blinked. Her lips parted just a little, but no sound came out. She looked down at Max. He didn't move, just waited. The silence hung in the air for what felt like hours. Amanda felt her heart pounding in her ears. The jury leaned forward. Cameras outside the courtroom clicked blindly through the window panes. But Lily said nothing. The judge tried again, even softer this time. "Lily, sweetheart, you're safe here. We're all here to listen." Still nothing. Then, something extraordinary happened. Lily reached down and placed her small hand on Max's head. Her fingers curled behind his ear, the way she always did when she was nervous. Then, almost imperceptibly, she moved her hand in a small gesture a trained signal Max had come to understand. Max lifted his head, ears perked, and looked straight at her. Then, to everyone's surprise, he stood up and walked, not toward Lily, not back to the door, not to her attorney. He walked slowly, deliberately straight toward the defense table. A collective gasp spread through the courtroom. Amanda stood frozen. Judge Meyer looked baffled. "Is this he supposed to do that?" he asked, eyes narrowing. Max now stood squarely in front of the defendant, his tail still, his stance firm, and then he sat, right there, beside the man who had been smiling only minutes ago. Now, the defendant's smirk had vanished. The judge was about to speak when Lily's voice finally broke the silence so soft it was barely a whisper, but it shattered the tension like glass. He remembers. Gasps rippled across the courtroom like a wave. The judge froze. The bailiff tensed. Even the stenographer stopped typing for a moment, glancing up as if unsure whether what she heard was real. Lily's tiny voice, barely a breath, had sliced through the courtroom like a knife through still water. He remembers. The judge leaned forward slowly, his gaze fixed on the child. "Lily, are you talking about Max?" She nodded once, almost imperceptibly, still staring at the dog. Her lips trembled as she tried to form another word, her voice dry and unused. The room sat in absolute silence, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the occasional creak of a chair. Amanda Reynolds, Lily's attorney, felt tears prickling in her eyes. She had waited for this, for any sign that the girl could summon her voice when it mattered most. But what had just occurred wasn't only powerful, it was surreal. Max hadn't been trained to do what he'd just done. He had no instruction to move. No command had been given. He simply responded to Lily's silent signal and made a choice that may have just changed the entire direction of the trial. The accused, a man named Darren Clive, tried to smirk again, but this time it faltered. Max was still sitting in front of him, not growling, not barking, just watching. There was something uncomfortable about the way the dog stared at him, eyes unwavering, as if he knew. Darren shifted in his seat, cleared his throat, and looked away. Judge Meyer, still stunned, finally broke the silence. "Ms. Harper, what do you mean?" He remembers. Lily glanced up, her eyes wet but fierce. Max was there. He remembers the smell, the voice, the man. The courtroom seemed to contract in on itself. Even the jury, some already visibly emotional, leaned in. Every word from the girl felt sacred now, like she was unlocking a sealed vault within herself. Amanda approached the bench slowly. "Your Honor, if I may, Lily and Max have been working together for months. While she hasn't been able to speak to adults, she has been communicating with Max consistently. He has specific response training. And what we just witnessed was not random. It was a response to a scent, a memory, something that triggered him." The judge turned to Lily. "Did you ask Max to do that?" Lily nodded. "With my hand, like I do when I want him to find something scary." A wave of murmurs erupted, quickly silenced by the judge's gavel. Darren's defense attorney stood up, clearly flustered. "Your Honor, this is absurd. Dogs cannot testify. This animal's behavior cannot be used as evidence. It's a distraction, nothing more." Amanda turned to the jury, her voice firm. "This isn't about a dog testifying, Your Honor. This is about a child using the only language she trusts. Max is her bridge to the truth, and what we just saw wasn't instinct, it was recognition." The judge exhaled deeply, tapping his fingers on the desk in thought. Finally, he addressed Lily again, this time with the softness of a grandfather speaking to a grandchild. "Lily, can you tell us what happened that night? Only if you're ready." Lily looked down at Max, who had returned to her side without a word. He lay beside her feet again, but this time, his body touched hers, gently, like a silent reassurance. She reached for his ear, rubbing the soft fur in slow, rhythmic motions, and then she spoke. It was dark. She began, her voice raspy but clearer now. "I was at the bottom of the stairs. Mommy told me to hide when she heard the door break. I didn't move. I just watched. He came in yelling. Mommy screamed. The room fell deathly silent. He grabbed her, threw her down. I ran and hid under the porch. I couldn't breathe. But Maxie found me later. He stayed with me until the police came." Amanda knelt beside her, gently placing a hand on Lily's arm. "Do you see the man who came in that night? Lily? Is he here?" Lily didn't hesitate. Her eyes locked on Darren Clive. "That's him." The defense attorney stood abruptly. "Objection. She's been silent for months now. Suddenly she's identifying my client based on a dog's behavior." Judge Meyer raised a hand, his voice sharp for the first time. "Sit down, counselor. We're not dealing with an ordinary witness, and you know it." Turning back to Lily, the judge asked softly, "How do you know it's him?" Lily looked at Max again, then took a deep breath. "He smells the same. I smelled it that night. Cologne. It made me feel sick. Max growled at it before. He hates it. He walked to him today because he remembered, too. Amanda's eyes widened. She quickly looked through the evidence files, flipping to the crime scene analysis. A small detail leaped off the page: an expensive cologne bottle, found shattered on the floor of the home, a scent rarely worn, mentioned once during investigation, but never released publicly, and somehow, this little girl remembered it. The defense lawyer looked rattled. He leaned toward Darren and whispered something that made him scowl, but neither spoke again. The judge rubbed his chin, his voice low with disbelief. None of that cologne detail was in any briefing or media report. Amanda shook her head. No, Your Honor, that fact was never made public. He sat back slowly. Then how did this child? He didn't finish the question. He didn't need to. Lily sat up straighter now. Her words were slow, but steady. I was scared. I didn't know how to talk about it. But Max, he knows when I remember. He helps me feel strong. The courtroom was no longer just watching a trial. They were witnessing a bond unbreakable, pure, and unlike anything they'd seen before. Lily's voice had returned, not with shouting or drama, but through the quiet guidance of a dog who had never left her side. And for the first time in the entire trial, Judge Meyer was speechless. The courtroom remained frozen in the moment, as though reality itself had paused to absorb what had just happened. Lily had spoken softly, but clearly. Her words had pierced through months of silence and trauma like sunlight breaking through a thick fog, and the entire courtroom had felt it. But what shook them most wasn't just her voice, it was Max. The dog hadn't barked, hadn't growled, hadn't lunged. He had moved with calm, purposeful steps, as if guided by something deeper than training. He had walked directly to Darren Clive, sat and stared. Now, back at Lily's side, he lay as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But to everyone watching, everything had changed. Judge Meyer looked down from the bench, fingers steepled beneath his chin, his thoughts visibly spinning. He wasn't just a judge that morning. He was a witness like everyone else to something almost inexplicable. He had presided over hundreds of trials, listened to thousands of testimonies, but never had he seen a moment so powerful, so raw, and yet so wordless. He leaned into his microphone and spoke gently. Ms. Reynolds, I believe we need a recess. Amanda nodded, placing a reassuring hand on Lily's back. The judge stood, his robe fluttering slightly as he exited the bench. The jury was ushered out, and murmurs began to rise like a tide. Spectators turned to one another with wide eyes. Some wiped tears. Reporters stepped out to file early updates. And still, in the middle of it all, Max rested peacefully, as if this were just another day beside the girl he loved. In the quiet hum of the now emptying courtroom, Amanda leaned in closer to Lily. You did something very brave today, she whispered. Lily glanced sideways, eyes cautious but curious. Will they believe me? Amanda smiled. They already do. Lily reached down, rubbing Max's soft ear. He knew before I did. He felt it. Amanda paused. Did Max ever react to Darren before today? Lily nodded. He stiffened during the first day, but I didn't signal him then. I wasn't ready. Amanda took a deep breath. But today, you were. Lily nodded again, and for the first time since Amanda had met her, the girl offered a small, tired smile. Meanwhile, in the hallway outside, the courtroom's energy had shifted from routine to electric. Reporters scrambled to confirm the unthinkable, a child breaking her silence. Through her bond with a dog, legal analysts whispered furiously into phones, and within the prosecutor's team, things moved quickly inside the recess room. The assistant district attorney flipped through case notes. Focusing on the cologne reference Lily had made, it masked a forensic detail the defense team had no knowledge of. It was crucial, a subtle link between Darren Clive and the scene of the crime that hadn't been released publicly to protect the integrity of testimony. That Lily could recall it meant one thing. She had been there, and so had Max. The emotional moment wasn't just compelling, it was evidence. Back in the defense chamber, the mood was quite the opposite. Darren's lawyer, a formerly composed man named Michael Crane, was pacing now, his cool demeanor cracking. She's just a kid. This whole dog thing, it's a stunt. It's emotional manipulation, not factual evidence. Darren remained quiet, staring at his hands. She's lying, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The confidence he'd worn like armor was now a rusting shell. Crane muttered under his breath, "We'll challenge the admissibility of anything involving the dog. It's unreliable." The judge has to see that, but even he didn't believe his words entirely. The jury had seen something real, something deeply human, and that was hard to unsee. After the break, the judge returned to the bench. His demeanor was as composed as ever, but his eyes looked heavier. Court is now back in session, he said. Amanda rose, gently guided Lily back to the witness stand. Max followed, taking his place at her feet like a soldier back at post. The jurors returned, and you could feel their energy had shifted. They weren't just observers anymore. They were emotionally invested. Amanda stepped forward. Lily, thank you for coming back. I know this is hard. Can I ask you just a few more questions? Lily nodded. Did you see the man's face the night he entered your home? Lily didn't blink. Yes. Amanda pointed toward Darren. Is that the man? Lily's voice was firmer this time. Yes, that's him. Crane immediately stood. Objection, leading the witness, sustained. The judge interrupted quickly, but not harshly. Ms. Reynolds, rephrase. Amanda nodded. Lily, can you tell the court who the man is? He's the one who hurt my mommy. Gasps filled the room again. A few jurors looked down, shaken. Others looked directly at Darren. He avoided their gaze. Amanda turned, addressing the judge. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to enter a behavioral analysis of Max's training and Lily's communication patterns into evidence. I also have testimony from her therapist to establish how their interaction works. Judge Meyer nodded. Granted. Proceed carefully. Amanda knew what was coming next would either strengthen their case or open it to ridicule, but the moment had to be preserved. She brought in Dr. Emily Rhodes, Lily's trauma specialist. Rhodes testified to Lily's selective mutism, her triggers, and most importantly, her emotional reliance on Max. Max has become a conduit for Lily's voice. She explained, we've used nonverbal cues in therapy. Max responds to specific gestures. The one she used today was a signal to identify something frightening or dangerous. Max walking to the defendant was not random, it was consistent with his training and their bond. The judge leaned back, nodding slowly. Amanda returned to the microphone. So, in your expert opinion, today's events were a legitimate emotional reaction and not a rehearsed performance? Dr. Rhodes didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Lily found her voice today because Max helped her feel safe enough to use it. The courtroom was silent again, but this time, the silence was filled with belief, not doubt. Judge Meyer paused, then looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, I remind you this case is still in session. Let's continue tomorrow at 9 a.m. As the courtroom emptied, Lily reached for Max's leash and whispered something in his ear. He wagged his tail softly. She hadn't just testified, she had taken the first step toward healing. The next morning, before the courtroom doors even opened, a quiet line formed outside. People who'd never set foot in a courthouse were suddenly eager to witness something they didn't fully understand, something beyond legal proceedings. They weren't there for scandal or headlines anymore. They were there for Lily. Inside, Amanda Reynolds arrived early, reviewing her notes with a different energy now, one mixed with focus, responsibility, and hope. Lily had opened the door, and it was Amanda's job to guide her through it, not just as a lawyer, but as a protector. Lily entered quietly with her foster mother, holding Max's leash loosely. The German shepherd walked beside her as if he sensed how much this day meant. Unlike the last hearing, Lily didn't need encouragement to sit in the witness box. She walked there on her own and waited, calm but alert, Max curling at her feet like a seasoned guardian. Judge Meyer entered minutes later. His usual stern demeanor seemed softened. His voice was firm as ever, but he addressed Lily with warmth. Good morning, Miss Harper. Are you feeling ready? She nodded, voice barely above a whisper. Yes, sir. Amanda stood. Lily, yesterday you told us Max reacted because he remembered the man who hurt your mother. I'd like to ask you about that night. Can you tell us what you saw? Lily glanced down at Max and gave a soft pat behind his ear. It was raining, she said quietly. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard glass, then the door slammed. Mommy told me to hide. She was yelling. She said, go under the porch. She paused, eyes tightening. I heard her scream. I ran. I crawled under the porch, but I could still see through the boards. He had something in his hand, a stick. No, a flashlight. He hit her with it. A gasp escaped from the jury box. Amanda gently asked, do you recognize the man now? Lily turned her head, her voice stronger than before. It was him, Darren Clive. The courtroom buzzed. Darren's expression hardened. His attorney jumped up. Objection, Your Honor, this is based on the memory of a child after months of silence. Overruled. Judge Meyer said without hesitation, Continue, Ms. Reynolds. Amanda nodded. Lily, you said something yesterday that wasn't in any police report. You said you remembered a smell. Can you explain that? Lily nodded. It was strong, like flowers and fire. It made my throat hurt. I remembered it when he walked in the courtroom. Max smelled it too. He growled a little when we sat down. Amanda turned to the evidence cart. She pulled out a clear, sealed bag containing a shattered glass bottle retrieved from the original crime scene. Your Honor, this bottle was found next to the victim. It's cologne imported, rare. The scent is distinct. Our forensic team noted its presence. It was never disclosed to the public or included in early case summaries. She turned back to Lily. Have you smelled that scent since the night of the attack? Lily shook her head. Only when I saw him again. Amanda walked over to the jury box. This 8-year-old girl, who hasn't spoken to another adult in months, recognized a smell linked to a piece of physical evidence we never released. That's not coincidence. That's memory. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Even those who doubted the value of a child's testimony now sat visibly affected. Amanda continued. Dr. Emily Rhodes, Lily's therapist, confirmed that Max was trained to respond to trauma cues, especially scent. Max identified the accused based on that scent, not because he was told to, but because he remembered. The defense lawyer stood, trying to regain control. Your Honor, we can't allow emotional storytelling to replace factual evidence. This dog's behavior, while dramatic, is not scientific. The girl is young, traumatized, and highly suggestible. But Judge Meyer didn't respond to the objection immediately. He leaned forward, hands folded. Mr. Crane, he said, what your client is accused of is brutal and cowardly. If a child is brave enough to face her fear, supported by a dog whose loyalty is beyond question, this court will hear every word. He turned to Lily again. Miss Harper, thank you for your bravery. Do you have anything more to share with the jury? Lily hesitated. Then, slowly, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Amanda helped her unfold it. It's my drawing, Lily said softly. It showed her house, the porch, her mother, and a shadowy figure with angry eyes. And in the corner, a dog. Max's paw stretched toward a small girl with tears on her cheeks. I drew it before I could talk. Max is telling me it's okay now. The judge asked gently. Did you draw this for the police? Lily shook her head. I drew it because I remembered. I didn't know how else to say it. Amanda held up the drawing. Your Honor, I'd like to submit this as evidence, not as factual depiction, but as a reflection of the trauma this child endured. The judge nodded, admitted. At that moment, something shifted deeper than evidence or testimony. The courtroom had already believed Lily. Now, they felt her truth. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it, how she showed it, and how her dog, the only soul she trusted, had confirmed it. Even Darren Clive looked smaller now, his confidence slowly deflating. Lily looked down at Max again, whispering a quiet thank you as she stroked his back. Amanda returned to her seat, her chest tight with emotion. She didn't need to say more. The child had spoken, the dog had confirmed, and the courtroom had been changed forever. By the time court resumed the next morning, the tension in the courtroom had transformed into quiet reverence. Reporters stood behind red robes, hushed but buzzing. Spectators filed in like they were attending a memorial, not a criminal trial. No one could stop talking about the girl and the dog. Lily's testimony had sent shockwaves through the case, her soft words cutting sharper than any argument made so far. More than facts, it was truth, and the jury had felt it. Amanda Reynolds arrived early, organizing files at her table. Across the room, Darren Clive sat stiffly beside his attorney, Michael Crane, whose confidence had cracked beyond repair. The once cocky defense lawyer now looked tired, distracted, like a man losing control of a crumbling dam. Amanda could feel it. The jury was no longer evaluating if Lily's words were believable. They were asking themselves how long the defense would pretend they weren't. Judge Meyer entered promptly at 9, his gaze serious. Counsel, proceed. Amanda stood. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Detective Serena Miles to the stand. Detective Miles had been the lead investigator on the case and was one of the first responders at the scene, a calm, methodical presence. She walked to the stand with measured steps, under oath. She described the chaotic scene, the broken door, shattered perfume bottle, signs of a struggle. But it was her words about Max that held the jury's focus. Max arrived with the canine trauma team. He located the child Lily within minutes under the porch. She was unresponsive, but he didn't bark or try to drag her out. He simply lay beside her, pressing against her body to keep her warm. Amanda asked gently, "Did you observe any unusual behavior from Max during initial contact?" "Yes," Miles replied. "He never left her side. When we attempted to take her to the ambulance, Max blocked our path. He was protecting her. Only after Lily opened her eyes and touched his ear did he allow us near her." Gasps were muffled. Across the courtroom, one juror wiped their eyes, and to confirm, Amanda added, "No one had disclosed the brand or presence of the cologne to the media, or anyone outside of your team?" "Correct," Miles said. "It was specifically omitted to protect the integrity of any future testimony." Amanda nodded, then addressed the court. The child did not just describe her trauma, she recalled a sensory detail known only to the investigative team. Her identification of Darren Clive is not only emotional, it's rooted in evidence. Crane stood slowly, clearly grasping at threads. "Detective, can you say with certainty that Mr. Clive was at the scene?" "No," she admitted, "but I can say with certainty that every factual piece of Lily's statement has matched the physical evidence we found. She's not guessing. She remembers." Crane sat down without rebuttal. Amanda now turned toward Lily's therapist, Dr. Emily Rhodes, who had been recalled for a follow-up testimony. "Dr. Rhodes, since the start of therapy, has Lily ever spoken about that night before this week?" Rhodes shook her head. "Not once. She communicated through Max only. It was only in court when she saw him again that she verbalized any memory." "And has Max ever falsely indicated fear or recognition before in your sessions?" "No. His behavior is consistent and focused." Amanda smiled. "So Max, a trauma-trained K9, sensed danger at the sight and smell of the defendant's hand." Lily confirmed it. "This isn't theatrics, Your Honor. This is trauma giving testimony through trust." Judge Meyer scribbled notes but remained quiet. The courtroom was hanging on Amanda's every word. Then she turned toward Darren Clive. "I'd like to remind the court that Mr. Clive had no alibi for the time of the incident, nor could he provide proof of his whereabouts. Furthermore, his fingerprints were found on a broken flashlight recovered from the victim's property, something he claimed he'd never seen." Crane stood up. "Objection. That flashlight was found outside the house." Amanda cut in. "But consistent with the weapon Lily described, the same flashlight used to strike her mother, who remains in a coma to this day." The room still. Judge Meyer leaned forward. "Mr. Crane, any counter?" Crane shook his head. "No, Your Honor." Amanda walked back to her table. She didn't need dramatic closing words. She had the truth, and it had spoken loud enough. Before court adjourned, Judge Meyer turned to the jury. "I want to commend the courage of a child and the patience of a courtroom. What we've seen here is rare silent testimony that speaks louder than most voices ever could." As people filed out, Lily remained in her seat beside Max. He rested his head on her lap again, sensing the weight she still carried. "Do you think they believe me?" she whispered to Amanda. Amanda knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, they don't just believe you, they feel you, and that's something no defense can break." Max licked Lily's hand gently, as if sealing the moment. Darren Clive watched them in silence. He didn't speak as he was led away in handcuffs for a separate hearing, related to tampering with evidence, another nail in his legal coffin. His smirk had vanished completely. The jury wasn't expected to deliberate until the following week. But those who had followed the case closely already knew the tide had turned, because one little girl had found her voice, and a dog had remembered what she couldn't yet say. The courtroom sat in silence, though no one had commanded it. It was the kind of stillness that follows something sacred, like the final note of a powerful symphony, or the last page of a life-changing book. But for Lily, this wasn't the end. It was just another step into memories she wished she didn't have. Back at the witness waiting room, Lily sat on the couch, gently brushing her fingers through Max's soft fur. His head rested on her knee, just as it had that night beneath the porch. There was something healing in the warmth of his presence, a silent vow that whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. Amanda entered quietly. "You did incredible today," she said. Crouching beside Lily, Lily looked up, unsure. "Even if I can't say everything yet." Amanda smiled softly. "You said enough to move an entire courtroom, more than most adults ever could." Outside, storm clouds rolled in, casting a gray tint over the courthouse windows. The media had begun circling again, sending the drama like vultures, their cameras pointed like arrows. Amanda had requested a temporary gag order to protect Lily, but the whispers still made it through. One headline read, "Silent signal dog names man before girl speaks." Another, "Canine witness. Courtroom turns when dog reacts to defendant." Inside the jury room, emotions were thick. The jurors had been instructed not to begin formal deliberations yet, but the weight of Lily's presence and the evidence was already working its way into their thoughts. Several had privately admitted they couldn't get her voice those few, trembled words out of their heads. "She remembered the smell," one juror had said. "That's not something you fake. That's trauma." Meanwhile, Amanda was preparing the final push for the coming day, her closing arguments. But something still bothered her. Darren Clive had stayed calm to silent even as evidence built like bricks around him. She returned to her office late that evening and reopened the case files for the 100th time. Victim statements, security footage, Lily's therapy logs, and forensics. But then something caught her eye. A missing link. A name. Travis Monk. He was a former co-worker of Clive's, previously dismissed for theft and battery. He was also listed as a witness early on, but had vanished before he could be questioned. At the time, police had no reason to pursue him. Amanda made a decision. She picked up the phone and called Detective Serena Miles. "Serena," she said urgently, "I need to reopen the Monk angle. You think Clive didn't act alone? I think Monk was there that night. Maybe he even led the break-in. But Darren was the one who got inside. Lily only saw him." Miles paused. "We'll issue a search alert. But Amanda, be careful. If Clive's covering for someone, and he starts to feel the walls closing, he might act." The next morning, Amanda arrived early to court again, but this time, she brought a copy of the original 911 call. The voice was shaky, young. It was Lily, before she stopped speaking entirely. "He's hurting Mommy. Please help. I'm hiding. I'm scared." The jury listened to the recording in stunned silence. Even Judge Meyer took off his glasses and leaned back. Amanda added, "That recording is over 6 months old." Lily didn't speak again until 2 days ago when Max gave her the courage to relive what she survived. When court recessed for lunch, Clive leaned toward his lawyer, whispering something under his breath. The bailiff noticed. So did Amanda. There was something urgent in his tone, something cold. Then, just after lunch, something unexpected happened. Clive's lawyer stood and requested a private meeting in the judge's chambers. 10 minutes later, word broke. The defendant was considering a plea deal. The courtroom buzzed. Cameras outside scrambled for angles. People whispered as Amanda's heart pounded. Clive had never even flinched before, but now, facing Lily's voice, Max's reaction, forensic evidence, and the possibility of a co-conspirator being found, he cracked. Back in her waiting room, Lily didn't understand it all, but she saw Amanda's face when she walked in. "You're not smiling," Lily said, gently. Amanda knelt in front of her. "Sometimes when the truth finally starts to win, it feels heavy." "Is he going away?" Lily asked. Amanda paused, then nodded. "For a very long time. He won't hurt anyone else." Lily looked down at Max. "He knew before I did." "No," Amanda said softly. "He just helped you remember what you already knew." As the skies cleared outside, a quiet strength settled inside Lily, a strength that came not from the courtroom's verdict, but from the courage it took to speak. Even after silence had claimed her voice, Max wagged his tail once, sensing the shift, because deep down, the real story wasn't about guilt or punishment. It was about a girl who found her way back from darkness, one silent signal at a time. The courtroom doors creaked open once more, but this time the atmosphere had shifted. The tide had turned, and even those seated in the gallery felt it. Justice wasn't just inching forward now. It was marching. Lily entered hand in hand with Amanda, Max padding loyally beside her. The jury was back. Deliberations had moved quickly once the potential plea was off the table. Clive's legal team had stalled, but the prosecutor had made one final demand: no deals. Amanda knew Lily needed more than a guilty verdict. She needed the truth to stand publicly. Without shortcuts, the judge entered the room and called for silence. The court clerk stood to read the verdict. The words echoed, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Darren Clive, guilty on all counts." The moment struck like lightning. There was no cheering, only gasps and quiet weeping. One juror covered her mouth. Another bowed his head. Amanda gently rested her hand on Lily's shoulder. The girl didn't smile. She didn't cry either. She simply looked at Max, who looked back with calm eyes, as if he had known all along. Clive didn't flinch. He just stared blankly ahead, but Amanda noticed the subtle clench of his jaw. That was the only emotion he allowed to slip through. The judge cleared his throat, visibly moved. "I've presided over many trials," Judge Meyer said, his voice softer than before. "But rarely have I witnessed courage like that shown by this young girl whose silence spoke volumes and whose voice, when it finally emerged, carried the weight of truth." He looked directly at Lily. "You reminded us all that justice is not only about law, it's about humanity." Lily didn't blink. She gently leaned toward Max and whispered something only he could hear. After court adjourned, Amanda led Lily out a side door to avoid the press swarm gathering out front. A few reporters tried to follow, but security turned them back. Outside, the autumn breeze had returned. The air smelled like fallen leaves and fresh rain. It was the kind of weather that made the world feel clean again. As they walked toward Amanda's car, Lily tugged at her coat. "Is it over?" she asked. Amanda knelt beside her. "The trial is over, but healing takes time. You've already done the hardest part." Lily looked down. "I still don't like to talk much." Amanda smiled. "That's okay. You said what mattered. And when you're ready to say more, we'll be here." A car pulled up behind them. It was Detective Serena Miles. She got out and approached with careful steps. "I wanted to say something," Miles began. "You saved someone, Lily." The girl tilted her head. "We found the other man," Serena continued. "Travis Monk. He was planning something else, maybe worse. But when he saw Clive was going down, he started running. We caught him before he could disappear again." Amanda's eyebrows rose. "That's incredible." "Did he confess?" Miles nodded. "He did, but it was Lily's testimony and Max that gave us the break. He never thought a kid and a dog would be the reason he got caught." Lily blinked. "I didn't mean to save anyone, but you did," Serena said. "More than one." As they drove home, Amanda glanced at Lily through the rearview mirror. She sat quietly, Max's head resting on her lap, his eyes half closed. When they reached Amanda's house, Lily ran straight to the backyard and threw herself onto the grass, arms wide. Max followed, wagging his tail. Amanda stood on the porch, watching. A tear slipped down her cheek, not from sadness, but awe. Later that evening, Lily asked if she could write a letter. Amanda brought her paper and crayons. Lily drew Max first, a brown dog with strong legs and kind eyes. Then she drew herself, standing next to him in the courtroom. She wrote in large, uneven letters, "Thank you, Max. You helped me be brave when I had no voice." Amanda taped the letter to the fridge, right next to a photo of Lily's first day in foster care. The change in her eyes between the two was stark, one filled with fear, the other filled with quiet strength. That night, as Amanda tucked Lily into bed, Max curled beside her like always. "Can Max stay with me forever?" Lily asked, yawning. Amanda nodded. "He's your hero. I think he'd be lost without you." Lily pulled the blanket up to her chin. "He didn't bark. He didn't growl. But he told the truth." Amanda sat on the edge of the bed, brushing Lily's hair aside. "Yes, and so did you." Outside, the stars had returned soft, distant, and unshaken by what had happened below. But inside that house, a girl who once couldn't speak had just helped rewrite a chapter in her life and maybe others, with nothing more than courage, a silent signal, and the love of a dog who refused to leave her side. Weeks had passed since the trial. The courtroom was now just a memory, faint echoes of trauma and triumph. Lily no longer woke up trembling. The nightmares came less often. Her words, once trapped in silence, now emerged in whispers, sometimes even laughter. But no one understood her healing more than Max. He stayed with her through it all. Amanda watched the two daily from the kitchen window, Lily in her boots, an oversized jacket, Max trailing behind her in the yard like a loyal shadow. The trauma hadn't vanished. Scars remained. But there was growth, till like sunlight after a bitter storm. One cold December morning, the doorbell rang. Amanda opened the door to find Judge Meyer himself, standing there in a wool coat, holding a thick envelope and wearing a look of gentle resolve. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said. "Of course not," Amanda replied, both surprised and curious. "I wanted to deliver something personally." Lily peeked from behind the hallway. Max patted forward, sniffing the judge's coat, then sat beside Lily, alert but calm. "I've nominated Max for a public commendation," the judge continued, kneeling slightly to meet Lily's gaze. "And you as well, young lady. What you both did, reminded the court and the country of the quiet strength inside us." Lily blinked but said nothing. Still, she stepped closer. Judge Meyer handed her the envelope. She opened it carefully. Inside was a certificate printed with elegant gold letters. "Certificate of Valor for extraordinary bravery in the pursuit of justice." Her name was there, and Max's too. Amanda knelt beside her. "This is something not many people get. Sweetheart, you should be very proud." Lily traced the letters of Max's name with her finger, then looked up. "Will Max still live?" "With me," the judge smiled. "As long as you want him to. He's yours." Lily's eyes lit up just a little. For her, that was a world of expression. That weekend, the local community held a small ceremony in the town square. Reporters came, but the tone wasn't about sensationalism anymore. It was respect. Law enforcement, child advocates, and neighbors all gathered around to witness something rare, a moment of unity in the aftermath of tragedy. As Lily stepped up with Max, the crowd fell silent. Amanda had offered to speak on her behalf, but Lily surprised everyone by gently stepping to the microphone herself. She took a deep breath. "My name is Lily. I didn't speak for a long time because I was scared. But Max always knew how I felt, even when I said nothing." She looked down at him. He sat at her side, tail thumping softly. He didn't need words. He just stayed. "That's why I could be brave, because I wasn't alone." People in the crowd wiped away tears. Even officers in uniform bowed their heads. After the speech, dozens came forward to meet her. But Lily, overwhelmed, found comfort sitting under a tree with Max, away from the noise. Amanda brought her cocoa and a blanket, and they sat quietly together, listening to the wind move through the branches. Later that evening, Amanda tucked Lily into bed once more. "Do you know how many kids you've helped?" she asked softly. Lily shook her head. "Other girls, other boys who've been through something terrible. They'll see your story. They'll know they can speak to, or signal, or just survive." Lily turned to face her. "Do I have to be brave all the time?" Amanda smiled, brushing hair from Lily's forehead. "No, just when it counts." Max climbed onto the bed, curling against Lily's side as he always did. "Will he get old?" Lily asked. "Will he forget?" Amanda's voice caught slightly, but she stayed steady. "He'll always remember you. Dogs like Max never forget the ones they protect." Lily nestled closer into Max's fur. "Then I won't forget either." The lights dimmed, stars flickering faintly outside the window. In the hush of the night, Amanda sat in the hallway with a warm mug in hand, reflecting on how far they'd come from a courtroom tense with silence to a home now filled with quiet strength. The judge's words came back to her. Justice is not only about law, it's about humanity. He was right, but it was also about trust, about healing, about the power of one small girl and her devoted dog to teach a room full of adults. That sometimes the most powerful testimony doesn't need to be shouted, it only needs to be believed. The next morning, Amanda found Lily at the kitchen table drawing again, another picture of Max, another rainbow in the sky. But this time, she'd added something new, herself holding a leash with confidence, a sun beaming above them both, and beneath it, in bold letters, she had written, "We told the truth, and it saved us."